You know that compliment. You're so mature for your age. Someone says it, and you smile, and something in your chest tightens at the same time, and you don't fully understand why. Because it sounds like praise. It's delivered like praise, and yet some part of you flinches, like you just got complimented for a wound. If you've heard that sentence more than once in your life, I want you to actually sit with it for a second before we go any further. Because what I'm about to say might reorganize a piece of how you understand yourself. Let's start with a scene, because you'll probably recognize it. You're maybe 9, maybe 11. Your parents are arguing in the next room, or one of them is crying quietly in the kitchen, or the house just feels heavy, in that specific way kids can sense but can't name. And you do the thing you've always done. You go still. You read the room. You figure out what's needed. Maybe it's making yourself smaller. Maybe it's comforting a parent who should be comforting you. Maybe it's just staying quiet, so nobody has one more thing to deal with. And an adult looks at you, impressed, and says it. You're so mature for your age. You take that sentence and you build an identity out of it. Because it's the only positive feedback available in a house that didn't have much of it lying around. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. That maturity wasn't growth. It was adaptation under pressure. There's a real difference between a child who develops emotional depth because they were given room to feel things safely, and a child who develops emotional control because feeling things wasn't safe at all. From the outside, those two kids can look identical, calm, thoughtful, easy to talk to, unusually perceptive for their age. But one of them got there through security. The other got there because somebody had to hold things together, and it wasn't going to be the adults in the room. Psychologists have a name for this: parentification. It's what happens when a child takes on emotional or practical responsibilities that belong to an adult, usually because the adult can't or won't carry them. Sometimes it's obvious, like a kid raising younger siblings because a parent is absent or unwell. But most of the time, it's quieter than that. It's the child who becomes the family's emotional regulator, the one who senses tension before anyone says a word and moves to diffuse it, the one whose own needs quietly stopped being asked about, because asking felt like adding weight to a house that was already sinking. And here's the cruel twist. Nobody clocks it as a problem because it doesn't look like a problem. It looks like a gift. The kid is so easy, so low maintenance, so wise beyond their years. Teachers love them. Relatives brag about them. And every single person doing the praising has no idea they're reinforcing a survival strategy and calling it a personality trait. Pause here for a second. Think about who praised you for being mature. Was it after you did something impressive, or was it after you went quiet, went still, or made someone else's problem disappear without complaint? That distinction matters more than almost anything else in this video, because here's what happens next. And this is the part that actually explains your adult life. That kid grows up, and the coping mechanism doesn't retire just because childhood ends. It follows you into every relationship you have. You become the friend who holds everyone together during a crisis, and then goes home and falls apart alone, because nobody ever checked if you were allowed to. You become the partner who can absorb almost anything without visibly cracking, which sounds like strength, until you notice you have no idea how to ask for help without feeling like a burden. You become the employee who gets handed every emotionally difficult conversation because you're so calm under pressure, and nobody ever wonders what that calm actually costs you afterward, alone, in your car, in the 15 minutes before you have to go be fine again. You learned early that your value came from what you could carry, not from who you were underneath it. And that lesson doesn't just fade with age. It calcifies. It becomes the operating system running quietly under everything you do. Think about the friend who's always the one holding the group together, checking in on everyone, remembering birthdays, noticing when someone's gone quiet, smoothing over conflict before it even fully forms. Everyone calls her the strong one, the mature one, the one who has it together. Nobody ever asks who's checking in on her. And when she finally does crack, even a little, people are shocked, because the story they'd built of her never had room for that. She'd been so good at being fine that her own pain became invisible, even to herself. Or think about the guy who was the man of the house at 12 because his father left and his mother needed someone steady. He's an adult now, successful by most measures, reliable to a fault, and he physically cannot, let anyone see him struggle, because somewhere in him is still a 12-year-old who learned that struggling out loud makes things worse for everyone else. He'll tell you he doesn't need much. He'll mean it mostly. What he actually means is that needing things stopped feeling safe a long time ago, and he never got the memo that it was allowed to feel safe again. Here's the twist, and I want you to really sit with this one. The maturity wasn't fake. That's important. You really were perceptive. You really did read people well, manage emotional situations most adults couldn't handle, hold space for other people's pain with real skill. That part is genuinely yours. And it's not something to throw away or resent, but it was built in the wrong soil. It grew out of necessity, not choice. And the tragedy isn't that you became capable. The tragedy is that nobody ever asked whether you wanted to be, or whether you were even allowed to be a child while it was happening. There's a subtler layer underneath this too, one that rarely gets named. A lot of people who were praised this way grow into adults with a very specific kind of loneliness, the loneliness of being needed but never known. People come to you for support constantly. Almost nobody comes to check on you. You've become so fluent in managing everyone else's emotional weather that people forget you have weather of your own. And you've gotten so used to that role that you might not even register the imbalance anymore. It just feels like who you are, but it isn't who you are. It's who you had to become. And those are not the same thing, even though it took years to tell them apart. So what do you actually do with this? Not a 5-step plan, nothing that tidy, because this isn't a tidy thing. But there is a starting point, and it's smaller than you'd think. It's noticing. Noticing the next time you instinctively swallow a need because voicing it feels like too much. Noticing when you comfort someone reflexively before you've even checked whether you have anything left to give. Noticing that the praise you got as a kid was often praise for your absence, not your presence. Praise for how little space you took up, rather than how much of yourself you brought into the room. You are allowed to take up space now. You are allowed to be the one who needs holding sometimes. You are allowed to be inconvenient, to fall apart on someone else's schedule instead of your own, to stop being the family's emotional shock absorber just because you're good at it. Being good at carrying something was never proof that it belonged on your shoulders. If any part of this felt less like a video and more like someone finally saying the quiet part out loud, that's not a coincidence. That's specific kind of tired. The tired of a person who's been strong for everyone except themselves doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from somewhere. And recognizing where it comes from is the first real step toward putting some of that weight down. Not because you're weak, but because you were never supposed to be carrying it alone in the first place.